Hey guys, so I'm gonna be talking second part where I want to get into putting together a business is talking about the internet. For anybody who's trying to put together a business, I feel like for getting started at least, the internet is your best chance at reaching your intended audience or your intended demographic. The internet is changing. It's not the way that it used to be. And when I was younger, the internet was obviously much slower. It was more about being a marketplace in an individual sense, where every website you went to was a place where you could sell things, and it was just really not as connected. It wasn't a social place. It was more like an information hub, or I mean, there were things like chat programs and stuff like that, and video games, but um, it's just really changed, and I feel like it has more to do with identity. And so a lot of people that have resistance to building a business on the internet do it on the grounds that there's a lot of narcissism, there's a lot of selfish, kind of self-centered behavior, where it becomes more about kind of puffing up the ego, puffing up one's influence and power. And so, and there's a lot of misinformation. News in this world is really difficult to interpret because there's so many different sources that you can get it from. And a lot of times with the way that social media works, it's really easy to fall into the trap of not really knowing who to trust, and what to trust. And so everything starts sounding fake, and you're not quite sure if there's really even a point of having to wade through all the information just to find one little nugget of truth. And so there's a lot of resistance to working building a business through the internet and through the social media. But this is the thing, is social media, there are a lot of programs out there that use, but basically they leverage. I like, say for instance, say I made like Instagram or something. Well, I made Instagram in a way that the people that use it, actually their motivation for using it is connecting with others, sharing their experiences, maybe talking about important issues, and sometimes nowadays especially selling some kind of product or service. And so it's moved from, and here's the thing, you'll notice, like when Facebook first started out, or when MySpace first started out, that it starts out very pure, very social oriented, because the platform is being marketed as a place to attract people, and people only want to go there if they feel like there's a place, like it's a place to connect. And so there's a cycle, like a life cycle of these kinds of programs, where as soon as there's a large enough people using the program, you'll have kind of a saturation of businesses that migrate towards it in an effort to kind of capitalize on that attention, where they notice there's a lot of people watching that program and hanging out there, so they want to put their products there for people to see. And the more and more businesses that get there, the more saturated it gets, the more you see ads and pop-ups, and the more that you'll see spam emails or messages from companies trying to get your attention. And it just gets to this point where it's kind of cluttered. And so I feel like getting into the internet in order to run a business can be complicated, but it is definitely worth the effort, learning about it and understanding how it works, and developing some skills in order to really convert that business into a form that people can see on the internet and understand clearly. Because the internet is a place where I feel, honestly, in a spiritual sense, you have the best chance of reaching your soul family, of being connected with people that you have kind of like a synchronicity with, things, because it's such a large place. You really have the ability to reach people that you couldn't reach before. You have the ability to talk to somebody on the other side of the planet, and you have ability to make an impact on them, and you can reach a group of people that you wouldn't normally be able to reach before, because you'd have to go there in person. You'd have to spend time there in person. And I don't want to hit on building a business locally, because I really truly believe in building a business locally, but the difficulty for most businesses is getting off the ground so that they can do that kind of work without losing momentum, without the extra costs of trying to spread, because local competition makes that difficult. It's a lot harder these days to get the attention of local people, local clients, because there's a lot more footwork involved, and you have to find a way of getting their attention in a very real way. And it's compared to doing work on the internet, you'll be able to spend a lot less time doing the work, so it's a lot more efficient. And I don't think efficiency is always the right answer, but for starting a business, I do feel like it is. One of the things I really think I want to emphasize over and over again is that developing skills on how to use the internet, how to use programs, how to communicate, how to get better at selling your product and being a better salesperson, how to really connect with people and communicate, how to develop relationships. Those are all things that you can get experience with by working your business into the internet. And so a lot of people get kind of frozen up when they think about this, because there's just, for some people they're not tech savvy. So, or they feel like technology is just really difficult for them. So I would recommend one of two things. Either get used to it and deal with it. Buckle down, take internet classes, take computer classes, take classes where they teach really, really basic forms of understanding of how the internet works, so that you can start understanding how to send an email, how to buy advertisement time on applications like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and all those apps, and Snapchat, and then if you can't do that, if that's just something, I think honestly though you should really do some searching in your heart and try to find out, is this just resistance I have to change, or resistance or insecurity about my own capabilities, or do you really, really have like crazy limitations with interacting with technology in that way, and it's just something you can't change about yourself. I understand if that's the case. I don't want to judge you, but just make sure that you're really digging into that, and you'll know. If you can't do that, if you want to build a business, the second option here is honestly, you need to pay someone else to do it. You need to. If you can't afford it right now, you need to start making a plan where you can afford for it. Start setting aside that time or money or whatever, so that you can start paying somebody to take care of your business on the internet. That's where people are spending a lot of their time. They're watching movies, they're looking at pictures, they're looking at memes, they're talking with other people. That's where most of the people spend their time on these days, is on their phone, on their computer, and they're not spending that much time driving around looking at billboards. That is just, it's still on a practical level sometimes makes sense depending on the client you're trying to reach, but honestly, there are so many people on the internet that I really feel you need to spend some money and some time on this. And if you can't understand how it works and you have some limitations or some disabilities, that's okay, but you need to start throwing some energy at it in some way. And if that means getting somebody else to do it for you, go for it. I feel like it's a necessity. So, second part. Now that I've gone on a crazy speech about like how much I love the internet and everything, I want to get into some of the applications that are out there and how exactly you can use it to build a business. So, looking at YouTube, you can see by Rainbow Harmony's success, building a business on YouTube that is service-based is really easy. There are other programs that provide video hosting services, which if you don't know what that means, it just means it's how, like, basically YouTube does the service for free on the grounds that they get to plug in advertisements. If you get enough followers watching your stuff or subscribers, that they will make money with you on those advertisements, that they support creative people in terms of making videos as a form of art or entertainment. And so that's how they get their money out of it. That's why they do it for free. That's why they offer the service for free. But along with it come limitations in the form of sometimes restrictions on video quality, restrictions on adding information to like annotations, or putting up polls for all the people that are watching your stuff. It all has to happen after you've reached a certain number of people following you, or a number of views, or a number of time watched, people watching your videos. And so that's why they offer it for free. And there's always some kind of exchange. Recognize going into any kind of program that if they're offering it for free, that they're getting something out of it, whether that's your personal private information or other people's personal private information. Nothing is for free on the internet through programs. You got to be careful with what kind of information that you're giving them, because that's always going to be, these days it's always going to be sold to some third party that uses that information to market ideas and products and services to you. So just be aware of that going in. That's how YouTube works. There are other programs like, I'm trying to think, Vine is another one, Vimeo is another one, and each one of them has their limitations. Not all of them are free. Some of them charge for you being able to record videos and upload them and have lots of people watch them. They may set a cap or a limit on, say, how many people can watch it, or how fast that how fast the connection is with those people that are watching it. They may set limitations, so it like takes longer to load, or they can only watch it once or twice before that limit is reached, and then you're done. And so they'll have packages like $20 or $30 a month, and you'll get this amount of repeat views or whatever. So the biggest thing is learning how exactly that affects your service. Why YouTube is great for something like what Promise is doing is because there are no limits on views. There are a few limitations on how long the videos can be, but once you've reached enough subscribers, those limitations go away, so it's a matter of just kind of grinding until you get there. But otherwise, you have the ability to comment on people's videos, and you can actually comment back, which is really important for actually developing a relationship with people. Other social media platforms that are successful tend to have that capability. You tend to be able to comment in some way, to be able to show your appreciation by liking something or hearting something with like an emoticon, and like sharing how you feel after you watch the video. Most platforms that are doing well this way have figured out a way that allows that interaction to happen in a healthy way, or in a way that kind of generates growth. So that's why Promise chose YouTube, is because the cost was low, the ability to reach an audience was really good, and some platforms actually offer advertising, or they offer you the ability to pay to get your creation to kind of like a priority, basically, where you can pay to get it placed in an area that's more likely to get attention. You can pay to have it show up in search results when you go to search engines like Google or Yahoo, you can pay to have your website or your YouTube video or whatever show up more prioritized. So it might be third from the top instead of like the 50th result. And so you can pay for those kinds of things. And depending on what your service is or your product and who you're trying to reach, and also how really successful that platform is at getting people to interact and engage with your content or with your videos or your services or whatever, it is worth paying for. And so, like I said, it depends. So that takes some understanding of how the platform works. And so once you've gotten into it and you really understand how it works, I recommend looking at advertisement through platforms like Facebook and Twitter, or not Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Most of them offer some way of like an advertisement that you can purchase, and that means getting more chances that people will be looking at your work or your art or your product or your service. And I think I've already mentioned in my last video, Gary Vaynerchuk. He has a YouTube channel. You can check his stuff out. He has tons and tons, just never-ending ideas. The guy's great on ideas for social media work in small businesses and big businesses and business-to-business businesses. So take a look at his stuff. I always get tons of ideas from him. Most of the real understanding I have of social media is because of him. So I really highly recommend taking a look at his speeches that he's done at like marketing conferences where he talks in a very business-oriented language. So if you're not familiar with the business language, that's also a good place to learn, because he's using it in a real kind of relevant sense. He understands how people are using these platforms to connect with others, and where to inject your service or your idea or your product or your project into the flow of things so that you can get it the most attention and get it the attention that it deserves. So there are things like on Instagram where you can, and just a basic understanding of how these things work, what you can do is actually pay. And how they usually work it out is they have some computer that takes a look at a bunch of numbers, and these numbers all pay attention to individual people, not as unique like numbers or anything like that. They do it statistically, so it's like, they look at, say, 1 million people, and they look at people who watched this video also watched this video, and they start using that information to categorize and lump people together in behavior groups. And they also look at people who, out of so many people that watched this or read this or commented on this group of people, out of so many of those people, these people all clicked on the link that you had in the advertisement or that this person had on their video. This many people actually went to a website, and they track it by noticing traffic, which they can track through the application and through websites and stuff like that. They track all of that using cookies, which is another way of saying, like, they put a little tracker as a file in your computer, and that tracker pays attention to the websites that you're visiting and uses that information as marketing information to lump you in again as a behavioral group, and to figure out how to sell you things. So they use that in their advertising services. They use that information, and the computer will come together and tell you, okay, based on this profile that you have and the kind of audience you have and the people you're trying to reach, and you can actually go down and check boxes sometimes with what they're doing, and you can check boxes that say, like, I want to reach people from 18 to 25, or I want to reach people from 32 to 65, and you can go through and you can check all those things. You can check also locations. So if you're only interested in selling people products in Australia, you can check a box that says, my advertisement only runs in Australia. You can do all kinds of little modifications and specifications when you run your advertisement. And then the biggest thing is it'll ask you how many days do you want to run the advertisement for, and then it'll actually calculate, based on how much you're willing to spend, how many people it will actually push that information to. And then it'll use, sometimes they have just like a basic calculation where it's like you pay $5 and we'll push this to 5,000 people. And once 5,000 people have just looked at it, then that's how they calculate that it's done, that the advertisement campaign is finished. And there's other ways of doing it where they'll calculate, okay, well, you want to actually reach people by getting a guarantee that a certain number of people will actually click on the link. And so you can base your campaign success and whether or not it's completed and you've paid for the service, you can base it off of how many people actually click the link. And so the ad will run, and maybe if you reach 10,000 people or 20,000 people, it won't finish until a certain amount of people have actually clicked the link. So there's some really, really powerful ways of getting your service out there, getting people knowing about it, creating awareness. It's really, really useful. Key thing is that certain platforms will cost more in order to have the same impact, in order to have the same effect on the people you're trying to reach. So what you want to do is to figure out where the people you're trying to reach are, what they're doing, how much time they're spending, and what platforms they might prefer. If you can't find that out, do it by testing. Just run an experiment. Run a couple of different campaigns on different platforms and figure out which ones tend to do the best. Figure out which ones you tend to have the most traction with. And you can run little experiments like that for very, very cheap amounts. I'm talking $15, $20 for a few days of ads, and it could have a really huge effect. Just figuring out where your people are, figuring out the most effective way of using your money on advertisement, and it's seriously, it's an amazing tool. Don't discount it when you're trying to expand, who you're trying to reach. And that's the key point, though, is with platforms like social media, this assumes, so just clarification here, this assumes that you already have a base amount of people that know you're offering a service, like the service you're offering, and are regularly engaged and commenting. The reason this works this way is because, and it kind of sucks, this is a crappy part, and this is why the last video I did talked about doing your product or your service for free, is doing it for free allows you to get to that point where you're talking with people, you're getting comments, people are liking stuff, they're sharing it with their friends, they're talking about it, you're doing collaborations with other companies that are in the same industry that offer a complementary service, or you're also doing collaborations where you're working on projects together, you're selling a product together and donating the profits to certain industries and all of that stuff. All this advertisement stuff assumes that you've already got a base number, and that number is going to be different probably depending on what you're doing, depending on how busy you are. I recommend that you really wait to work on advertisement until you're kind of, I don't know, a quarter busy or half busy with the work, because there's like a snowball effect where people will look at your advertisement and they'll judge whether or not they're interested on it based on how many other people are already watching or already buying the service. And that's unfortunate, but it's something that's just, it's always the case. There are obviously some exceptions, and those people are exceptional people because they're not thinking about whether or not other people like it, they're thinking about whether or not they like it personally. And that's just not as common these days. So you do tend to have to wait until you have more traction before you run these advertisement services. But like I said, they are extremely worth it. So grind until you can get to the point where you're able to charge for your services. You don't always have to run advertisements when you're offering services at a price. You can always run advertisement on free products or giveaways and contests. Those are always great ways of reaching an audience and finding a way to give something to them so that they can just understand your product and get a chance to interact with it. That's the best way to develop regular clients. So that's most of the points I have. I'm at about 25 minutes, so I want to kind of close up here. If you have any questions about individual platforms, I'd love to walk you through. I want to do some walkthrough videos soon so that you can see how some of these platforms work on a very practical level. I would love to hear from you about certain kind of businesses you're trying to run, how to get to the clients you're looking to reach, maybe how to understand your client and how to figure out ways of injecting into the market so that you can get some more attention. So comment below, let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm going to put my email down in the details. I offer consultations. I also do tarot readings and intuitive readings through the website promiseharmony.com, which is also below in the details. I'll put the link there. It's how I'm able to do these videos for free and how I'm able to go out and spend all this time out here traveling and building my own business is through these readings and through these consultations. So if you want to support, that's the best way to support what I'm doing. Obviously, we can also collaborate if you want to do collaborations or interviews. I'm always interested in working with other people. Let me know your thoughts though, and I will talk to you tomorrow.